We're now going to rise from our closed session. Moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor Campbell. Be it resolved that council rise from the closed session of November 26, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. with the following to report. Council reviewed and discussed applications for bursaries for personal identifiable individuals. All in favor? Carried. Do we have any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? None. Can move on to 7 consent agenda. 7A is an establishment of Ontario Rural Road Safety Program. November 6, 2024 follow-up establishment of Ontario Rural Road Safety Program. Resolution of support for Good Roads Association. B, support Billy Bishop Airport is a 2024 October 7th letter of support Billy Bishop Airport. The resolution is of support for Billy Bishop Airport. C is a redistribution of the provincial land transfer tax and GST. November 12th, 2024. D, ambulance shortages and healthcare system issues in Terrace Bay. E is King requesting the redistribution of provincial land transfer tax and GST to municipalities for sustainable infrastructure funding. F, resolution of support for provincial updates to the Municipal Elections Act, resolution number 2024-0168. If I could have a move in a second of that, please. Bouchard and Campbell. Be it resolved that the consent agenda item listed on November 26, 2024 council agenda, specifically items 7A to 7F, be received by council, and further that the motions contained therein are hereby supported as written. Any questions or comments on those? All in favor? Carried. Moves us right away onto delegations. And Mr. Brian Marks is here from CDSB, and he's going to make a presentation on what they do and how our money is spent. So I think your microphone's on. I don't know, is there anything else we need? Perfect. I'll give you the floor, Mr. Marks.
Thanks very much, and thanks for the invitation. So I'll be brief. I mean, even though the DSAP has a Cochrane District Services Board, formerly the Cochrane District Social Services Administration Board, has a 25+ year history. I think it's important for people to know the context, and so I won't, talk about the full 25 years, but I think it's important to know why DSAPs were created, because a lot of people, including people in current provincial government, don't know what DSAPs are, even though the Conservative government is the party that created DSAPs 25 years ago. So Mike Harris, late 90s, it was called Local Service Realignment, and the province downloaded services to municipalities and stopped at the point when they had uploaded an equal cost of education costs to the province. And so they downloaded 4 mandated services for municipalities, and that included at the time social housing, now community housing, paramedic services, subsidized childcare or children's services, and also Ontario Works or social services, which includes income and employment supports. Now, important to note there that when the province uploads things, they fund things based off an income tax model, whereas when they download things to municipalities, municipalities are forced to pay for those off of a property tax base. And for the most part, over 25 years, the property tax base in the Cochrane District has been stagnant or declining, which means there's just fewer dollars to pay for the services. The Cochrane budget started out, our Cochrane DSAP budget started out in the neighborhood of about $50 million with about 20% attributable to municipalities. And it's complicated by program. There are different formulas in each of the four mandated services that I mentioned that require either 50-50 split on provincial and municipal costs. Some are 80-20, some are a combination of both. At all points, administration tries to maximize provincial money for administration costs. Currently, moving into next year, our budget is around $90 million with a municipal share of about just under 20. Since 2025, since the download in 1999, up until just prior to the pandemic, administration was able to keep the entire increase in the municipal cost share to just under 2.5% over 20 years. Again, that's just the commitment we try to make to maximize provincial money. So we're the second largest district social service board. Kenora is larger. However, we do have a population twice the size of Kenora. So we cover 140,000 square kilometers from here in Matheson to Moosonee. We are the only service manager out of 47 in the province that has a municipality that is considered a territory without municipal organization, and that's Moosonee. Moosonee actually has special standing in all of the acts, the Children's Services Act, Social Housing Act, the Ontario Works Act, and the province is to pick up 100% of that tab. It's supposed to. It's also important to note that the reason why 10 DSABs were created in Northern Ontario is when Harris downloaded these services in the late 90s, there was no tax structure in Northern Ontario. There were no counties or upper tier municipalities, so they created 10 district social service administration boards. And Cochrane is one of those 10. In terms of representation, there are 14 members. We started out with 12 members, one of which was a provincial appointee, and it didn't take long after 2 years for the provincial appointee to be dismissed from the board. 7 members are from the city of Timmins, and 7 members are from communities along the Highway 11 corridor. Black River Matheson has always had its own seat. There have been other municipalities that have been added. Iroquois Falls was added, and my memory is failing me here, but within the last 10 years, Iroquois Falls was added for a permanent member. There are 5 municipalities that share a representative, and that representative usually alternates over election cycles to represent. I think the 5 municipalities are Fauquier, Valrita, Moonbeam, Smooth Rock Falls now has a member. Anyway, there's a member that represents 5 different municipalities. And then brings us to an important point to discuss, and this is the slide that you have, and this is how the apportionment is calculated. And the reason we know that this is the formula that works is approximately 6 years ago, some of you may recall, it was actually my first year as CAO, the city of Timmins tried to change the funding formula for the Cochrane DSAP. And so where that went was over the course of about 6 months, at some point, 3 different municipalities were refusing to pay their levy because it was a fairly controversial issue about apportionment. And then the minister stepped in and froze the funding formula so that it could not be changed. And then once we settled the dispute, the minister withdrew that regulation, and now the funding formula is again within control of all service managers. The way it works is based on current value assessment and weighted assessment once municipalities approve their tax ratios. So current value assessment is just basically the value of all of your infrastructure and assets in a particular municipality. And then the weighted assessment comes in after you apply your residential, your agriculture, your commercial tax rates. And then that is put in the pot with all the other 11 municipalities in the Cochrane DSAP. And then that is what generates what the split is. So, based on, last year's apportionment, you can see the, levy for Matheson is around 5.3%. And the actual, dollars are just over $1 million. The way it works is Timmins right now is probably picking up in the neighborhood of about 62% of district social service board costs. And that's just based on the current value assessment and the weighted assessment in Timmins, just like the weighted assessment here. And the reason we know this is right is when we did the review using a third party with a career and history in municipal apportionment, everybody was equally unhappy. So that was how we knew that we had landed on someplace where this was pretty much the only way to go. All the other 9 DSABs use the same formulas with minor variances. For example, we have a minor variance in that the power dams were included in 2001 and frozen at that rate. So municipalities that have power dams, they have a special calculation in the apportionment, but it was frozen at 2001 rates. Next slide, great. So this is a really high level capture of the service volume. And one of the things administration tries to do at the beginning of every elected term and new board members come on is obviously make it clear about the value for money that the DSAB represents. We don't provide services, with the exception of perhaps paramedic services, that many people know about. You know, they walk down the street, they might see a seniors building, but not know who the landlord is or who the owner is. Children's services, a lot of people, you know, just take childcare for granted. Obviously in Black River Matheson, you don't, because there is no current licensed childcare in Black River Matheson. And I'll talk a little bit about next steps for that. But one of the things we want to, especially on the healthcare side, we want people to understand that the DSAP provides what are commonly referred to as the socioeconomic determinants of health. I mean, it's hard to be healthy, even if you're getting decent healthcare and you happen to have access to a doctor, if you live in poverty and you're paying in excess of 50% of your monthly income on rent, groceries, you name it. So that said, on the emergency medical services, you can see the call volume. In 2023 in Matheson responded to 282 calls, 289 calls to date in 2024. So that's going up. We have 4 full-time staff. Total call volume is around 12,000 for the DSAB, all municipalities included. On the Ontario Works side, we've got 1 full-time staff member in Matheson, and there are 45 Ontario Works cases. The province pays 100% of the benefits for people on social assistance, but the administration costs for Ontario Works is split. And this is one of the more complicated ones. Some is 80-20 and some is 50-50. On the children's services side, again, there are currently no spots, but Matheson and Smooth Rock Falls are prioritized right now. With the implementation of the Canada-wide Early Learning and Childcare Program, which is, as everybody knows it, the $10 a day program, it's a pretty convoluted funding formula and program. In fact, we don't have the 2025 guidelines. They're to be released. I think they might have been released today, actually. But the way it works is we had to put in a directed growth plan last year. And so we immediately included targets for Smooth Rock Falls and Black River Matheson. So in 2025, you will see the implementation of a coordinated access or a waitlist system. It's important that all of the people in Matheson who require childcare put their names into that database, because that is what will drive the creation of licensed childcare in Matheson in 2026 and beyond. So very important, and there'll be more information coming out from the DSAB, and the Child Care Department does a really good job of getting the information out to parents district-wide, especially through our early on programs, which there is one here, and it's a very popular program, so important to reinforce that. On the housing side, we do have the properties in Val Gagne and Black River Matheson. And that they include Lessard, McIntyre, and on 6th Avenue for a total of 69 units. And that's a mix between townhouse, row, and seniors. Important to note that, and I know some of the questions that you might have will be housing related. Rent geared to income, which is what we inherited from the province in the late nineties, that no longer exists, except for the portfolio that we maintain through the local housing corporation. The act and the province was very shrewd when they downloaded by also including in the act something called service level standards. So we are required to maintain that number of units, regardless of what they might look like. So for example, an operating agreement for one of these properties might expire and we could sell the property. But if we do, and that property has 50 units, we have to maintain those 50 units someplace else. And that can even be in the private sector by us supplementing a private landlord to bring the rents to a certain level, those units would count. But rent geared to income, which is somebody paying no more than 30% of their monthly income, nobody's building that anymore. That is not being developed anywhere in the province. What you'll hear about for housing development these days is affordable housing. Typically, affordable housing is defined as 80% of market rent. Market rents are typically defined by the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation survey on each municipality. They're not really reliable for Northern Ontario because when CMHC does their surveys, they don't distinguish whether the rents are hot or cold. And we all know utilities represent a significant cost for people in Northern Ontario, so it's very deceptive when it comes to defining market rent according to Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. Next slide, please. This is the last slide. So there are some value-added services that we do provide at the DSAB as well. Cochrane DSAB was the one of two paramedic services 5 years ago. We were first, along with Renfrew, to be funded for community paramedic program. Community paramedicine is basically a Band-Aid for the Ministry of Health not being able to deliver services at a primary care level. And so they funded us to retask paramedic services to be able to satisfy provincial priorities such as delivering healthcare services for people who don't have access to primary care, so that particularly seniors would not prematurely be put on wait lists for long-term care. Good idea up front. However, we wanted to make sure that the province didn't prioritize community paramedicine above the strategies that are needed to make sure that sustainable access to primary care exists in all Northern Ontario municipalities. Because municipalities that don't have doctors or nurse practitioners, it's very difficult to develop and maintain family housing because it's just choice people will make. They will, typically not choose to raise a family in communities that don't have that. The DSAB is in the business of maintaining municipalities and having municipalities grow. We've actually had meetings, that were called Saving Opus Attica, because we wanted to make sure that we could develop family and seniors housing. Unfortunately, when the elementary school closed, it was very difficult to come up with plans that could justify the development of family housing in a municipality. So it's incumbent upon us all to work together to make sure we get in front of these things. And some of the development and the initiatives that I know are happening in Black River Madison are something that we need to capitalize on together right now to make sure that while those things are happening and there's a sound economic development strategy in place, that's the time to talk to the ministries about developing family and seniors housing. Seniors housing is a good tool to develop, not only to keep seniors in place, but as an employment creator, because there are jobs that are required to be able to support seniors, whether it's personal support workers, healthcare aides, you name it. So that's community paramedicine. We've kind of gone off script related to the province on this because we've extended the program beyond keeping people off of long-term care. And also now we're doing remote testing and actually wound care for vulnerable populations. The homelessness services, we became, as all 47 service managers in the province did, became the homelessness fund administrator for the province around 2008. At the time, it was called Community Homelessness Prevention Initiative. Now it's called the Homelessness Prevention Program. This is not without its controversy. There are many initiatives that come in, whether it's emergency shelters, other initiatives with that typically result in people judging why people are homeless, things like that. DSAP, we try not to get into that. There are programs that we've used the funding for that have benefited people in Black River and Matheson, which include utility disconnect prevention, eviction prevention. We've helped people with mortgage arrears, because part of, addressing homelessness is preventing homelessness. So we do what we can to make sure people can remain housed when they're housed. One of the key challenges we're having is with discharge planning from institutions. And, hopefully we'll be able to make some progress in that regard when people do get discharged, whether it's from incarceration or mental health units at the hospital, to make sure they don't get discharged into homelessness and they get discharged into units. So the homelessness part is one value add. And then the last piece that we created a housing development corporation in about 2012, understanding that maintaining the portfolio that we inherited from the province was one thing. But in order to be able to appropriately serve the needs of Northern Ontario municipalities, we needed to be able to grow the portfolio, to be able to offer affordable housing for youth who wanted to stay or could stay, or serve as an attraction for youth to stay in Northern Ontario, so that they came home after university, college, or they were able to stay here and work in a mine or a mill and have an affordable place to live. Because there are not enough units in any of our municipalities right now. The other piece was to serve as an attraction for additional people to relocate from Southern Ontario to come to Northern Ontario to improve or broaden our property tax base. As I mentioned earlier, a stagnant or declining property tax base just puts more pressure. And you saw the levy, and there are OPP costs, there are other municipal costs, whether it's public works, infrastructure. These are all competing for your tax dollars, and housing is no different. The one difference on when we create affordable housing is each project is designed to pay for itself. So it's designed to not hit your levy. The way that works is there are some expectations of municipalities, because the way you create affordable housing is without any money from the province. The way you create affordable housing is to drive down all of your costs to the rock bottom level, which include the cost of money, so financing. And we're able to get really competitive rates for 40 years by using an interest rate swap mechanism, which drives down the costs. So the amortization costs are low, because we're in this for decades. We're not your typical developer where we want to get in, build, sell, and get out. And then the other piece is, working with contractors and trying to be innovative these days, whether it's modular, it could be stick build, it could be panel build, you name it. This model worked really well up until about 5 years ago. But then with the pandemic, and now with construction costs north of $450 a square foot, it's very difficult to build affordable housing without some kind of contribution from the federal or provincial government. So we take advantage of opportunities that we have at AMO and Roma to make our case. And we do have plans included for Black River Matheson to be able to work with the municipality. When it comes to affordability, either myself or the director of housing would be here asking for a property tax waiver for 5 years to create that affordability. Because whether it's a cost in construction, the cost of borrowing money, or taxes, all of that ends up on the person who's renting the unit. The rent has to pay for it. That's all I have. I could go on for a long time, but happy to answer any questions, particularly related to, I know your top of mind issues are childcare and housing.
Thank you, Mr. Marks. I'll open the floor to questions and comments then. Council, Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For childcare, what kind of services, whereabouts would they be provided? Would you need to have a new building, or would you take up space in a building that's in town?
So I wish that was an easy answer. Because childcare is now a part of the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Education is pushing school-based childcare. And at times, the school boards apply for funds that we are unaware of, and we find out after the fact, so, I'd like to say community-based would be the way to go, because it's more versatile and can respond to community need. But at the end of the day, we don't always get to choose what type of capital gets built. And the ministry controls the capital. Up until the issuance of the latest guidelines, I guess it was up until early 2024, there was $90 per square foot available for capital. You can't build anything for $90 per square foot. I do know that we, right now in the targeted growth plan, we have an initial childcare space allocation set for 15 spaces. But that can grow beyond that, because there's another growth plan that has to be submitted from 2027 to 2031. So initially it'll be 15. And this is why the data that gets put into the wait list from the families in Black River Matheson is critical, because we need to figure out the staffing based on whether that's infants, toddlers, preschoolers, things like that. So we need that demographic and that breakdown. So sorry, I can't really answer your question whether it'll be school-based or community-based, because some of that's out of our control.
So if we get people of the community to go on and the need is much higher than 15 spaces, that's something that when you go to open, you would be planning to open for more? Or do you just open initially with 15 spaces and then progressively?
Exactly.
Okay.
And I wish we had more control in childcare. Of the 2,400 spaces we have, there are hundreds that are vacant because we can't hire early childhood educators, because there just aren't any, because we can't pay them.
Yeah.
If we wanted to increase and pay them more, we would actually lose money from the province. They would take money away from us if we chose to pay them beyond a certain threshold. That doesn't make sense to me, and it shouldn't make sense to you. Because if municipalities prioritize childcare and say, well, we need to pay early childhood educators more to open up more spaces, this is what we need for our community, we should be allowed to do that. We'll lose money from the province, and the increase to your property taxes would not be manageable to fund that model. So I wish I had a better answer for you, but I would count on your council's support when we do address this with the Ministry of Education.
Myself, and I know two others that have twins that are 2 years old. So just 3 people alone would have take up 6 spots.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So I know the need is much higher than 15. So I'm just wondering how we could maybe initially start a little bit higher.
Well, the one suggestion I have too is perhaps the person that should be sitting in the seat is our Director of Children's Services, because she knows a lot more about these things than I do. So happy to make that happen at the next or whatever meeting you think is appropriate, because we also directly deliver what's called Northern Treasures, which is a home-based childcare program. And so the homeowner can have up to 6 children in addition to their own if they're within certain ages. And so we can create those spaces beyond either community or school-based childcare. So again, I'm probably saying something wrong there that she's gonna not be happy about tomorrow, but there is some versatility in what we directly deliver.
Any other questions? Councillor Charbonneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For housing, is there any plan on building more housing in Matheson?
Well, we always want to build. And so the first thing we need to do is work with municipality to find the land. And service land is best, obviously, and infill projects. So if there are lots in your municipality that are either vacant or derelict properties, or things that the municipality can vest through tax arrears, those are really good opportunities to develop affordable housing. It's not popular with all councillors when I say things like to transfer those to the DSAB for $1, but that's how you get affordable housing. When the DSAB doesn't have to pay for it, then we can develop we eat the costs on construction or do the best we can to get a good deal on construction. And we'll go leverage the funds from the bank, or we'll try and lobby the province and get the funds to develop the units. But at the end of the day, we don't want this to hit your levy, so the rent's gotta pay for the cost. So we work with municipalities, not only on finding vacant lots, but on zoning, because, if we're looking to build a fourplex and it's not permitted in a particular area, we work with municipalities to try to make that happen, because you can recover your costs on 4 units in a lot, even though it's a greater density than perhaps that lot was zoned for. Those are the kinds of things that we need to work on together today to make this kind of thing happen. So if those lots are available, if not, if it's vacant land that isn't serviced, the DSAB's happy to go with the municipality to Good Roads or Roma or AMO, or set up a standalone meeting to meet with the Ministry of Infrastructure, Infrastructure Ontario, whoever, to put the case out there, because you all know that the province right now, the Ford government, is woefully behind on their target to build 1.5 million units. I don't think they're seeing the opportunity that exists in Northern Ontario. I mean, right now in the Cochrane district alone, if we had an investment from the province, we could build over 600 units. That's just one DSAB. If you factor all 10 DSABs in, and I'm the lead CAO for NOSDA, which is all 10 DSABs, we're the 3rd largest housing provider in the province after Toronto and Ottawa. And we go from Quebec to Manitoba, north of Lake Superior. Like, we could deliver thousands of units for them. And that would include Black River, Matheson, and all of our member municipalities. So, I know it's the same burden that you're facing when it comes to servicing lots. Like, estimates in Timmins right now are $8,500 a linear meter to service a lot. So on a 50-foot lot, that's $100,000 off the top. That's 50% more. No, sorry, that's 100% more than 8 years ago. So, I mean, it's hard to sell a house or move somebody in affordably when both the municipality and the DSAB have to eat that $100,000 just to service the lot. And then factor in $400 minimum per square foot to build something. So anyway, the plans are there. It's just whether or not we can make it reality. We have met with the Minister of Housing a number of times, letting them know the story in Northern Ontario, and that we do need some kind of economic supplement from the province so that we can achieve our housing development needs. Biggest barrier right now is we get no standing when it comes to housing targets. You've seen that in the news, where you'll see Sudbury got $50,000 or $100,000 because they're meeting their housing targets. Our population isn't high enough. You have to have a municipality over 50,000 to qualify for housing targets. The Cochrane district has 80,000 people in it. So again, this is part of the discrepancy between what people know DSABs are and what we aren't. And they just we don't get the same standing as a municipality. So we don't get to qualify for those kinds of programs.
Thank you. Everyone, any other questions? I have a question. We had spoke prior a couple months ago. I think you would indicate there's some sort of, you had a planning department or planning section that could help us out.
Yeah, so in 2012, when we created our development corporation, I was the director of housing at the time, and actually seconded myself out of that role to build the development corporation. And all we did was we converted the local housing corporation, and we added one of the corporate objects. And it said to develop affordable housing or generate revenue to be reinvested into developing affordable housing. And so right now we have a manager of development services who works with our director of housing, and his only purpose is to work with municipalities to develop housing. So, I mean, site visit, meeting with your CAO and your planning department to go over opportunities, and look at, typically where it starts is a survey of vacant properties that the municipality would be willing to prioritize for development. And then we look at that, and then we, the DSAB, will typically eat the costs on conceptuals. Because what we found was when we went to delegations and we talked about a project, it got nowhere. But when we put conceptuals in front of a minister, which typically, you're looking at, depending on the size of the project, it could be $100,000-$200,000. But that's something, if we get the project developed, we just capitalize that cost and recover it through the amortization of the project. So again, that's a value add that we would work with municipalities, but then we would pay for the development of the conceptuals and hopefully move the project forward.
Very good. Good for council questions? Sure. Well, thank you, Mr. Marks, for showing up today in the nice weather that we have.
Typical.
Yes. And I myself, having traveled to Timmins a couple days ago, I'm fully okay if you don't want to stay for the rest of our meeting and you want to head home to your family and beat the bad weather that might still be coming.
I appreciate that. Actually, I may be able to catch the end of Timmins Council meeting that I'm supposed to be at as well.
Oh, okay.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, under 8B, we removed that under our confirmation of agenda. We're gonna move on to number 9. It was moved by Councillor Campbell, seconded by Councillor Gattery. Change or be it resolved that the council hereby amends the date and time of the next regular council meeting from December 10th, 2024 to December 9th, 2024. Do you have any questions or comments on that? No? All in favor then? Carried. Moved by Councillor McCutcheon, seconded by Councillor Allen. Be it resolved, the council adopts the attached schedule for our regular meetings of 2025. Any questions or comments on the 2025 schedule? No. Perfect. All in favor? Carried. The radiothon. Moved by Councillor Guthrie and seconded by Councillor McCutcheon. Be it resolved that council approve a donation in the amount of blank to the Community Care Radiothon benefiting Mix Healthcare Foundation. Questions or comments we're gonna need because it is left blank, so I'm looking for someone to throw out a suggestion here, comment. Councillor Allen.
Is this something that we've ever supported before? Anyone know? Is this a new thing?
I don't know that answer.
I don't remember this coming up before.
No.
Yeah.
I see a head nod in corner.
Okay.
Ms. McIntyre, can you enlighten us as to where we,
Yeah.
when we've done this before?
Yes,
Yeah.
Council and Mayor, last year, there was a remainder left in the donation budget. And because it was to the last council meeting for the year and no one else had requested any money to be donated anywhere, they took the remainder of that allotment and donated it last year to the regular.
Okay.
So this, I'm assuming, would come out of our donations or grants organizations. Do we know where we sit with that? So we're still good? Okay, so any idea, question, comment on that? We're still good, I guess? Oh, Councillor Bouchard.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Do we know how much money was raised last year?
Through Council and Mayor, I'm unsure. I know that last year they were going for, I believe it was an X-ray machine, or it was a very large purchase. And I couldn't tell you exactly what we had donated, either $200 or $2,500 was left or something. But please don't quote me on that.
This year, under us is the ventilator for Bingham Memorial Hospital. So there's obviously two options that were available, one is under 1,000 or over 1,000. I'm looking for some guidance as to an amount, if you want to contribute, and if you do, what the amount might be. Councillor Charbonneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe we should, and if we are going to, I believe we should do the 1,000. This way we get Matheson's name out there more often, right? Because the other one, the name doesn't get mentioned. With everything we're trying to do with Matheson, I think it's important that everybody hears Matheson often.
Okay. Councillor Gander.
I'm in agreement with $1,000 as well, because if we want to attract doctors and nurse practitioners, we need equipment, so.
Mhm.
I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. Councillor McCutcheon.
Mr. Mayor, it says the donations over $1,000 gets multiple mentions during the radiothon. So it would be over $1,000, not just $1,000. Thank you.
1,001.
I think, how much did we donate last time?
None of us.
None of us know?
Mr. Lefebvre has a.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, you're testing my memory a little bit. I think it was one of the first council meetings I was at, but I don't think that any of the funds had been used. So I think it was either close to or at $5,000.
Ms. Larson.
Through the mayor to council, I believe that Mr. Lefebvre and I looked at it very briefly, and I want to say we have about $3,400 left this year.
And that would be our budgeted amount to bring us to 2025.
Yes, like that would be using the funds.
Are we aware of any more requests for donations coming through, or has anyone seen any emails? No? Okay. Questions or comments? Councillor Allen?
With that being said, maybe we can do 1,500.
Okay.
Just show our support for.
And would leave some money in case over the course of the next couple months. Councillor Council?
Yeah, I agree with that. And we can do 1,500. That way there gives us a little bit in case something else comes up before the end of the year.
Getting a general consensus, being a good number. Okay, I'll reread the resolution. Be it resolved that council approve a donation in the amount of $1,500 to the Community Care Radiothon benefiting Mix Healthcare Foundation. All in favor? Carried. D, we're gonna do a last minute change here. We're gonna remove that from our new business. That was a request to use the arena space, and Jose Micho has received a donation from a community member to pay for her sale at the curling cup. So we're gonna remove that and gonna wish Jose the best of luck in her sale, and I hope that everybody attends and buys something. Brings us to 9E, which is coal tar water for discussion, which will be Councillor Allen. I'll give you the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to discuss with council tonight. We did have a meeting, myself and the mayor with Chris from Aqua, discussing the whole Tara water situation and what can be done, what could be done going forward. So The one thing that we do know that we should look at doing for Whole Tire is they have 3 auto flushers in Whole Tire. And, or two, sorry. And one of them is currently not in service. So there's repairs that need to be made to one of them, and the other one, if we keep letting it go, it freezes every winter because it's above ground. So the auto flushers are not working at all during the winter because they're frozen. So one of the suggestions that we had was to build boxes to put the auto flushers underground. And that way, hopefully, that will keep them warm enough, have it insulated and everything like that, so that they can continue to flush throughout the winter months as well. That's just one step in the process of trying to fix the whole Tire water situation. It's obviously a lot bigger than what we can do in the short period of time that we have here, but we want to look forward to a plan going forward. There is lots of pressure problems and problems with people's appliances getting clogged and things because the infrastructure has a lot of sediment built up in it over time. It has not been repaired. It's been fairly neglected over the years, and it's about time it does get replaced, but it is also at a very high price tag. So another thing that we discussed was about the possibility of seeing if we can be sort of a pilot project for water in the area, pushing the provincial government to try and help us with funding and stuff like that to get something done in Whole Tire.
The boxes, the insulated boxes around it.
Yeah, yeah. So
Do
we
that.
want to, I guess, do we want to put a motion or what do we have to do with that?
Yeah, or maybe an RFP to get the,
Right, an RFP for the contractors.
Yeah.
That we would need to get in to build the boxes. We do have specs that Chris from Aqua sent us for the boxes of what needs to be done to put them underground. And because it's just recently snowed, hopefully we still have time to dig down and get it done real quick before. Cause that's just, we need to show Whole Tire that we care about the fact that they have an issue there. And so if it's just something as simple as that, we're taking one step forward instead of just leaving it for the winter and hoping for the best. Now, this is something that I'm going to be bringing up on a fairly regular basis for discussion as to what we can do going forward. I'm open and willing to discuss with anyone if you have any suggestions or any ideas going forward, but this is something that is very obviously I'm very passionate about. So I'd like to get a plan going for the future of our residents there. And like the gentleman from DSAB was saying, they want to put housing in. Well, Whole Tire would be a great place to put housing in. We have lots of vacant lots there and stuff like that, but we can only do that once we've kind of cleared up some of the issues we already have. So I guess I will request the RFP for the contractors to get the boxes made.
Okay.
And hopefully hear something back for next meeting.
thank you, Councillor Allen. I'm gonna open up for questions, comments from council, Councillor Cancel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do we know what it's gonna cost to fix the other flusher?
I don't think he provided us a price, but we could request it because that's something that Aqua does generally or constantly, so they could provide us a price for that. But the insulated boxes, we'd have to get put on an RFQ out there because it's not that it's not a unique box, but it's just someone has to do it. Councillor Bouchard.
How big of a box we thought, like, is it like a small room or is it just a Like a cover that they.
Just, it's the cover, you know, the green covers they have on them now, the plastic green covers,
I haven't, I don't know.
Okay,
what
it's-
they are.
what size of the table? Not very big. Not very big at all.
And it's just to dig it down and get it underneath, like far enough down that it shouldn't freeze, and hopefully with the insulation, it'll
And
keep it warm enough.
the purpose of the auto flusher obviously is to keep the water flowing and keeps the turbidity out of the water. So as they shut down, then you get turbidity, which gets your color. Councillor Bouchard.
Like when it auto flushes, does it just come out of the ground or does it actually pump out to the creek or something?
Recirculates,
It recirculates.
keeps the water going.
It just sends it back to the well.
No, just in a loop.
In a loop.
It's just so the water's not stagnant. right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it doesn't
Okay,
sit in the pipes.
So it's not really a flush, it's a recirculator.
Yeah,
Yeah, because a flush would just flush, like, you know, you treat the water, then you flush it to the environment, where this is just a. Like a
Yeah.
loop. But does the box have to be insulated or just, heated?
no,
No, because the foam is gonna keep it warm, but the. It's on timer, so it's not running 24/7, it's running for a few minutes off for a few minutes, so that in the time that it's shut off, it's. Gives it the opportunity to break the freeze, yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Lefebvre?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, we did, the treasurer and I have a meeting with Aqua regarding the capital budget. And we did discuss the insulated boxes. I don't think that the price would be such that we require an RFQ or an RFP for this type of work. And in fact, between Aqua and our own workers, we figured we could probably put something together that would be adequate. And then there was discussion about the flushers as well for the 2025 capital budget. So just so that you're comfortable that the discussions are underway.
okay, perfect.
Counselor Sharma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the second auto flusher that's not working, how long has it been not working?
That I cannot answer, and I don't, do you remember?
No, he
Yes,
didn't
okay.
have a date, he just had said that the one auto flusher is non-functional and it has been brought forward to the municipality for
So
repair.
that's something that we gotta, as a council, we gotta get on top of, because,
It says it's been brought forward. We have never heard about it.
yeah, it might have been brought forward when, Ms. Horgan was our minister appointee. There's a lot of aqua items were brought forward at that point. Counselor Bouchard.
Do we have to pass a resolution to get that done ASAP before it gets too cold or?
No. Just for the meetings.
So. If our own employees are going to do that, is that an option? Because if we. Want to be open and transparent, I wanna. Hire some contract, I want it available for anybody if. We're not gonna do it, if we're gonna do it, then great.
So based on what I would estimate the cost to be, I would, at the very least, we would still get 3 quotes for the work by 3 different contractors. It's a bit time sensitive, so I would suggest that going up for an RFQ is probably, again, it's not required based on the estimated cost,
Mhm.
and then it would also add to the timelines. So,
Yeah,
but we would make sure to be fair.
yeah, as long as everybody gets an option for it then. Counselor McCutcheon?
Just a question, if somebody would tell me, how much does a new flusher cost?
Is that in our pricing for later on?
No.
No? No, okay. We'll have to get you the answer then.
Yeah, you can find out because if it's not functioning or not repaired. Like, I don't know if this thing costs $5,000, $10,000, but. You can't have it not working.
It'll
So
go
either fix it or replace it.
Do we have a price from that?
No, but I could probably get a price pretty quick.
Okay,
I know when we met with Aqua, the cost for this, the flushers, it wasn't high priced items. Aqua even suggested that they would take on flushing it, which would ensure that it was being done on a regular basis. This wasn't a high price site. It wasn't. No.
Councilor McCutcheon?
So should we just like go forward with getting a price from Aqua for a new flusher for the one in the boxes? Or, cause like we're right up against how long we can, cause once it freezes up, we're done, right?
Mhm.
So if we're up against the wall, can we get a price for the next meeting or?
Mr. Lefebvre?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe, Aqua is including it in their capital budget for 2025. But we could probably do it even sooner than that, for sure.
Well, maybe we should suggest then that it come back to the December 9th meeting
For the discussion.
as a number that we can approve or disapprove.
Okay.
Well, see, it doesn't need a report, because we're obviously in agreement that it needs to be done, and we agree that the boxes need to be done. So I don't wanna report us to death, just come back with a number and we'll move on from there. So that doesn't need a resolution because we know what we're doing. Perfect. 9F is landfill discussion. Councilor Allen once again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I've had a lot of complaints from residents about the hours of the landfill, the way they pay fees at the landfill, and the cost of the landfill. Not only that, but I've noticed on my travels through different roads and stuff like that, that I'm finding there's a lot more people dumping lately. In random spots all over the place. I've seen kids' toys, I've seen garbage bags, I've seen tires thrown off the side of the road, and in the last little bit, since the landfill has changed to having the tipping fees at the municipal office and changing the hours and stuff like that, it seems to have affected the way people look at it. I also noticed that when we were, I did some research at other landfills, and the cost of our landfill is very high in comparison to other landfills in the area. So, for example, Kirkland Lake landfill is up to 2 cubic meters per load, $13.75. Temagami, half-ton load, no charge. Englehart is the residential. So is $6 per load. We've also got Iroquois Falls, they pay $20 a year for a landfill access card, so they don't have a limit. Yeah, so what I'm trying to say is that it's $30 for a truckload is a very high amount, which is causing people now to dump at the sides of the road or wherever they can find. Not only that, but having to get into the township office to pay for that, that means you're doing 2 trips. Every time you want to go to the dump, you have to go to the township office, pay your fees, and then you have to go to the dump whenever it is open. It's only open from 8 to 12 on Saturdays. So for people who work Monday to Friday, Saturday morning, you get up, you start loading your trailer up. It's 11:30 by the time you're ready to go, and you got to race to the dump to go and drop it off. And you got to hope that you had time Monday to Friday to get to the office to pay for the tipping fees. So I find this is totally backwards for our municipality, especially because we have a lot of minors and stuff like that around and people who work Monday to Friday. I think we should really look at changing this back to the tipping fees being taken at the actual landfills. We have landfill operators, people who are there, attendants. From what I understand, we're paying them to stand there and watch people come in. Because they don't take money, they don't direct things, they just stand at the gate and watch people drive by pretty much and point. And that's it. So, my question is, why can't we bring those landfill fees back to the landfills themselves and have that taken care of, and also look at lowering the landfill fees so that we have people actually showing up and changing the time?
Counselor Allen. Okay. Counselor Boucher, Charbonneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the, I agree with Councilor Allen for the dumps. The only thing I disagree with is paying at the dump. I think we should really look at our neighboring communities, what they're doing. I use the Eric Falls landfill a lot with work, and I think they really have the system figured out. Because let's say you don't have cash on you,
Mhm.
you can't go to the dump.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll do 5-6 trips a day to the dump. At $85 a day, I don't have $600 in my pocket, right? Eric Falls, they have a system, you pay your membership, they give you a card. When you go to the landfill, your license plate's on your card and with your name. So that way, if you have to pay, it gets sent to the office, and then the office keeps track of, Dan Charbonneau owes this much. And then if you don't pay, well, at the tax time, they get you. And then for out of town contractors, there's out of town non-resident passes you can buy. Those are a lot more expensive, but you're a non-resident, so.
Okay. Three comments. Counselor McCutcheon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I go to the Algonquin dump all the time. And I like the card idea. The card idea works and everything like that, but Iroquois Falls has a whole different animal going on there. Like, they force people to, you're gonna recycle your stuff, you're gonna, like, the TVs go here, the metal goes there, that goes there, everything else goes in the hole. All you gotta do is go to the BG dump and realize it's a free-for-all. Right, everything just goes in the hole. There's recycling bins there, but there's no structure to it. It's just a back up, dump it all in, like, just fill it up. So if we're gonna go to I love the card idea, but if we're gonna go with the card idea, then we have to get a better recycling program, or where these things are supposed to go, so they get, like, you go there and the feed troughs, there's siding, that's all going in the hole, right? It's not going to the right places. There's nobody there policing it. Or there's no structure for it. If we're gonna, I think the whole entire landfill system needs to be revamped.
Yeah.
For what we're gonna try and do here.
Counselor Charbonneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Councilor McCutcheon, I don't think the card would change any of that. Like if somebody's going to Balgonia dump, to drop off bags, that it's free.
Yeah.
They would go there with their card to show they're a resident, and it would be free, right? If I go there with a trailer and pay $85, it would be the same thing. So it wouldn't change the organization of the dump.
I just think the dumps are a complete train wreck.
Yes, I agree.
Absolute train wreck. I agree, right? The card idea would probably still work. But as far as the dumps themselves, I can't see BG being open much longer. It's almost level. So I don't know where they're digging next. Now it's all blown in the trees, and like Councilor Allen said, it's dumped at the gate, it's dumped down the road. You pull into a gravel pit or an old area, and it's all over the place. Just
Questions or comments? Counselor Council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think our hours, we gotta look at changing them as well. Maybe get the people that are running their dumps a little bit more training on direction on where to dump the items, where to put them. I know Matheson's starting to look the same as Valganya too, like people are just dumping everything in the hole instead of sorting things out. But I know our hours they're brutal.
Counselor Allen.
I also wanted to mention that I've been to the Raymore dump a few times, and for a place that only takes garbage bags, or that's only supposed to take garbage bags and recyclables, I've seen couches, I've seen chairs, and I've also seen a four-wheeler trail that leads in from who knows where. So there's people coming after hours and dumping whenever they want, wherever they want, and whatever they want. So that's something, maybe the security at those places as well needs to be looked at, or have those paths somehow blocked, whether you just, fallen trees or whatever. But just start blocking those so that people are using it appropriately, because going in there when it's only supposed to be garbage bags and recyclables and stuff like that, and you have couches and chairs and all sorts of stuff, that means that someone's been either allowing it or dumping after hours. So that's an issue when it's meant for only certain items, right?
Councilor Charbonneau?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think when we get some budget meetings going, I think we should really have discussions on this. Because, I mean, some people might hate me for this, but we have too many dumps. If I look at Eric Falls, for example, everybody in that town that wants to go to the dump has to drive 10 minutes to go to the dump. Right? So Matheson, let's say, would be the central location. Raymore would drive 10 minutes. Malagong would drive 10 minutes. And then we could concentrate on really prioritizing one dump and making it the best dump we can make it. Because we're a small community with a lot of dumps.
Which means we incur a lot of environmental fees for those dumps too.
Yeah, we'd have to keep the environmental going. You can't just stop, but you can stop adding to it.
Yeah,
I know, we'd had this conversation, guess in the previous council, and there was a landfill report already.
Mhm.
But I think, as times are changing, we should maybe request that we get a new report based on 2024. And so the 3 items would be, and 4 items would be the hours and the use of a card, because a one-time fee saves our front office staff from having to get up to the counter multiple times a day. And the dividing of the garbage, Councilman McCutcheon has said. And location, we can add location there as well, but if we in a short period of time, we have a director of public services, he or she could start that report, fresh eyes and a fresh set of ideas of what we want.
Mhm.
So that's something that we could, if you want, we could make that as a request for report tonight. And that way, the new incumbent's gonna have his or her first task.
I agree.
So, who's gonna write that? Just some elevator music for a second here while we wait a second.
Get free to sing the mic.
No, it's not good. Yeah. You want it too? All right, here is the resolution. Be it resolved that council directs staff to bring a report on landfill use, including 1 hours operation, 2 use of an annual card, 3 sorting issues, and 4 multiple locations.
Yep.
Are you good with that? All in favor of that? Oh, I'm gonna move in a second, or sorry. All in favor? Nine G, property standards for discussion. Counselor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So in Holtire, we have a big problem with property standards, just not being kept up. I have had many discussions regarding this, and so I'd like to get a report brought back to all of council so that we're all aware of exactly what steps are taken to ensure property standards are being met. Because I see that there's still lots of property standards that obviously, properties that are not up to standard. So I'd like to know I want everyone to know exactly what the process is going forward as to how we get this cleared up. So that should anyone else have these issues, that we can make sure we're all following the same process and that it is getting done, but it's just, now the snow's flying. And now there is a lot of properties where they're gonna say, oh, well, the snow's flying, it's hard to get to, it's hard to clean up, it's this and that. We're giving them a chance to have excuses or justify the reason as to why they aren't keeping their properties up to standard. I have seen some major improvements on some of the properties within Holtire, which I'm very, very happy with. There has been at least one property that was taken down and demolished completely, level ground, beautifully done in only a couple days. It was very good work done. A few other places have been cleaned up very, very well, but a lot of the property standard issues come with old decrepit vehicles and stuff like that on properties, and especially within a residential area. When you drive into Holtire, it's not as appealing as it could be. And I know in Raymore, I've heard the same issues from some of the residents there, that there are a couple properties there that should be taken care of as well, because they are not meeting the property standards. I want to push this along and make this, having a yard that is appropriate, trying to find the word, sorry. I want that to be a standard across the board. No one should, I mean, it's one thing if you have something there because you're taking it apart and doing your thing with it and it's gone a month later, that's fine. I understand what you're doing. People have to work and do things and that's okay. But when it's been sitting there for years and years and years and years, I've had many complaints about vehicles that have been sitting in people's backyards, just full of junk and stuff like that. And they're just sitting there for no reason other than no one's stopped them from having them there. So if we could get a report back stating that, and if anyone else has any ideas or discussion they'd like to bring up.
Any questions, comments? Counselor Bouchard.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just to add to that, for Raymore, I know we have two houses that the roofs are completely collapsed. And they're a hazard for kids, they're a hazard for fire, they look like hell.
Yeah.
And, you know, technically, we should look at who owns the properties, if they're still owners, and, you know, somebody's gotta get them torn down and cleaned up. They're really not, one of them, the siding a couple of weeks ago was falling off and falling in the neighbor's yard, almost hitting their cars and stuff like that, so it's just that we need to look at some of that stuff.
Okay. Counselor Allen.
Also, if, I don't know if James wants to speak on this, but for the condemned houses and stuff like that in Holtire, if you could speak to the process on how much it costs to remove, to demolish some of these buildings that I know are within the township's ownership now. How much it costs to remove the buildings and the whole process and how it takes, just so our residents are aware of how much it costs to clean all these properties up and how that would affect them as ratepayers.
Yeah, of course, through you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, everything is great when, excuse me, when you ask somebody to clean their yard and they comply, unfortunately, what happens when you don't get compliance is you're faced with a couple of options. Either you go through a court process, you try to potentially use some administrative fees. The municipality bears the cost of that cleanup or demolition, and then adds it to the tax roll. And unfortunately, a lot of times what happens is if somebody's property is demolished by the municipality, and the municipality adds that to the tax roll, sometimes the cost of that sort of outweighs the value of a vacant lot. And what happens is the municipality ends up owning that or trying to sell it through some sort of tax process. So that's all things that I could certainly put in the report for you. There are some struggles associated with it, but as you've seen, sometimes compliance is achieved easily, and when that happens, it's certainly better for everyone.
Also, how do we go about with any of the properties that we do own that are in very bad condition? Is there a way we can go and get them condemned so that if for whatever reason someone wants to come in and buy the property and the building on it is condemned, they can purchase a property, but there must be something within the contract stating that it has to be torn down because it is a condemned building, so that we don't have anyone coming in and living in a dwelling that is not suited to be lived in.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, we can certainly prohibit occupancy on some of these buildings so that they can't be. I mean, they could be renovated with a proper building permit. If we had to, we could say that you're required to demolish it. A lot of these properties, though, just so that council understands, if they're not necessarily owned by the municipality, I know there's been sort of a misconception with some of the tax arrear sales that have happened in the last couple of weeks that the municipality owns those properties. We do not. That's not really something that we can get into right now, but essentially we're going through a tax sale process. That doesn't mean that we own that property. So once the municipality vests a property, it becomes their property. We own it. Our name is on the deed, so to speak. At that point, we could explore options, including demolishing it ourselves. Prior to selling it, we could try to sell it. I know I've worked with DSAB in the past, having them purchase properties that are derelict is probably an understatement. So there's lots of options if you're creative, but until that property becomes ours, we're very limited in what we could do in that regard. So it would fall very similar to somebody who's not under a tax arrear sale. So your average resident who faces a property standards order, or somebody whose property is already in tax arrears, the process would be the same. We'd just be adding to those arrears essentially.
Any other questions or comments? So you're looking to get a report back on that?
Yes, a
Okay.
report with all the information on how property standards works and how we can go about dealing with each individual situation.
Okay.
You need me to write it or you got that?
No, I don't have that one. Yeah. What? Nine G, be it resolved that council directs staff to bring a report on property standard processes. Good with the wording?
Yep.
All in favor? Moving is good. I need to move in a second, please. Councilor Allen, Councilor Sherman. All in favor? Thank you. I'll get it right on this one. 9H, Pine Road Bridge for discussion. Councilor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to discuss with everyone, the Pine Road Bridge, because currently that has been a source of frustration for the Mennonites. They have almost an hour detour going around when they can't use the Pine Road Bridge. So they are spending more time on the highways than they need to because they don't have access to use that Pine Road Bridge. So my thought is, and I don't know if this is possible, but I would like to present the gentleman that called me regarding this Pine Road Bridge. With the option to possibly purchase that area of road from where the bridge is to his property. So that they can do what they need to do to use it, and that way it's one less bridge on our list of things to take care of. There is only one other property, from what I understand, that's past his property. And that person uses Spruce Road to go back and forth to their house, so the Pine Road Bridge isn't an area of concern for them. It just is for the Mennonite community because they're trying to go back and forth between farms, and they can't do that obviously when there's no bridge in place or the bridge is closed down. So if they have the option to build or do whatever they'd like, I feel like that might be a better option than sitting here and letting the bridge just rot away and having them have to make detours all the time. They are bringing a lot of money and industry into our community, and it'd be nice to give them that opportunity to take care of that themselves if they so wish.
Comments, Councilor Charbonneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My first question. The Mennonite put a culvert there before. Is there bylaws prohibiting that? On private property?
Whereabouts, sorry?
At the
On-
Pine Bridge?
Okay, on their property.
On their own private property, they had put a culvert and they were forced to remove it. By the town.
Okay.
I'm suggesting we remove the bridge and let them do what they want on their private property. No, other resident from Black River Matheson needs that bridge.
Councilor Bouchard.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Doesn't the road come around though and then do the loop and then go around, but everybody can use?
Yeah, but there's two accesses from the highway.
I know, but when I was on farming in Raymore, we used that road. The bridge was still open then. We
Yeah.
went across there with a fire truck to get to
But
it.
it's not open now.
That's right.
So you gotta go around either way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's still a municipal road, isn't it? Are we not opening with the snowplows or nothing?
Mr. Lefebvre.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, just to answer Councilor Charbonneau's question about the culvert, I don't believe it was the municipality that required them to remove it without getting into too much detail.
So is this something we can get a report on, whether we can get rid of this is a municipality asset? If it's in poor condition, it's a liability on an asset, but if the landowners agree to get along and we can get rid of that would be great. So that's something we can get a report on.
Yeah, absolutely. If there's an opportunity to sell that land, it sounds like it would make sense for face value. The road could be stopped up and closed and declared surplus and sold to an adjacent landowner. So that's something we could explore. We could provide a report for them.
Everybody's good with something like that? Oh, Council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I think the only issue we would see if we sold them the bridge for them to repair the bridge would be other people still trying to access and go across that bridge. Then that would be a liability on the Mennonites. So I think, like Councilor Charbonneau said, removing the bridge and allowing them access on their own land would probably be the best route.
Mhm. Okay. So that could be part of the report. Councilor Charbonneau?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Also, we have a lot of these bridges, so I'm sure there's some parts we can use off this bridge. If we were to remove the bridge, there's probably parts we can use to repair other bridges. Right?
Yep. Okay. Nine H. Be it resolved that council directs staff to bring a report on options for Pine Road Bridge, including possible sale. If I get a mover in a seconder. Alan, Gabby. All in favor? Thank you, Councilor Allen. Before I move on, I'm gonna make a quick public notice here. We put out a notice for committees of council vacancies, which kind of goes right into all this discussion we just had. We have two seats vacant for the ad hoc recreation committee. We have one seat for the planning advisory committee, one seat for the committee of adjustments, three seats for the accessibility advisory committee, 4 seats for the senior advisory committee, and 1 seat for the property standards committee. So I think residents can see that we're a very progressive council and we're wanting to move things forward. So sending an application would be great. As you had mentioned, the property standards, if we have a committee, then we can get more items done and more eyes on the road. So ask the residents, please send in your applications. Brings us 10 to 11 reports. Be it resolved that council acknowledge receipt of the Ontario Ombudsman report dated November 8th, 2024, and has included it in tonight's open meeting agenda per their request. If I could have do I have a mover second already? Oh, it was moved by Councillor McCutcheon and seconded by Councillor Campbell. Any questions or comments on this report that's now public? No? Well, I happen to have some comments. Sorry. So I'm gonna say, first of all, I appreciate the ombudsman doing this investigation. All of us 7 have a reputation to hold. We've put our lives and our personal lives on stake for what we believe in. Some of us may want to further our career in politics, but regardless, our reputations are at stake here as to what we said or what people think of what we had done. So, well, I'm just going to state some facts or some falsities, if I may. And I'm hopeful that it's okay that I'm going to discuss this in public and that we don't get another notarized letter in the morning. So be it. First comment I'm going to make is under the background, or I should also, I'll back up first. All 7 previous council members and staff were interviewed for this report or this investigation. And once that investigation was complete, a draft letter was sent out to each of us, anybody that was interviewed, with our ability to make changes or redo our comments and questions. So once we receive this is legal and this is binding. However, I myself had the opportunity to go back and tell the people or the ombudsman, no, that wasn't right, that this was right, that wasn't right. But in my opinion, it didn't make a difference because I already said what I had to say. So if I have to say it a second time, it was a waste of time. So at 6:05, council passed a resolution to move into closed session to discuss 2 agenda items. So I want the public to know that in open and on our video and recorded, you'll see my objection to moving into the closed meeting. Because I personally called this meeting. I did it not through the mayor and not through staff, but I asked for 3 other council members, so I have quorum. Which is a procedure, if we could discuss a certain item. And I had those 3 people agree with me. And when I got to the meeting, I sat here and the agenda that was proposed was not the agenda that I and 3 other individuals had agreed upon. So I don't like to see when it comes to something like this, where this is how it went. This is not how it went. It went as I just said. I'm the one that called the meeting and I had an item to discuss, and that's not how the meeting proceeded. We move on to, it says that the council discussed these 2 topics and 3 other items that were not described in the resolution to proceed in camera. The first item that we discussed, we were told we discussed, was a council member's resignation. We did not discuss a council member's resignation. We were told at the time that it would be discussed at the next regular council meeting, and they would be accepted or denied at that council meeting. So there was no discussion. So discussion is a very fine word. So there was no discussion. The second and third items is correct. There was no discussion on those items. When it comes to the finishing of the background, where it says, according to the minutes, the meeting was adjourned in closed session around 8 p.m. as quorum was lost. This meeting was never adjourned. And the minutes indicate that it was. And members of staff at 8 o'clock left abruptly, and quorum was never lost. So I want to make sure that Councilor Campbell.
If I can just add on that.
Yeah.
I remember Mayor Bender asking the clerk at the time how we are to come out of close and end the meeting. And her response was direct, stating that, how can you do that if you have no clerk?
Correct.
That was her response.
Yeah, correct. So it's pretty strong words when we say that this report is incorrect. So just remind you that it was never adjourned, and to this date, on our council website, it says that the meeting was adjourned at 8 p.m. And again, it talks about the analysis. In the future, should council wish to add items to a closed agenda, it should pass a public resolution where if the interview was correct, then you would have realized that the agenda was what I had done my email for. So I wouldn't have had to add an item to the agenda because the agenda was mine at the time. I'll say mine, but there was 4 of us that agreed to it, so I'm just the one that's talking. Furthermore, under the analysis, in this case, council held a recorded vote during the closed session on a matter related to a staff member. This matter was not included in the resolution. Our staff at the time allowed that vote. As councilmen, we're trained by our staff, and when I went in there and asked for a vote, it was allowed. So here, the analysis is that we did wrong when I don't think the blame should fall upon us because we did what we thought was right. And many times in the previous meetings, we were redirected if we were wrong. So, as a matter of fact, we did hold a recorded vote and we held it twice. So it was counted and then it was confirmed again. So we don't always need to put the blame on us if it was done twice. Further on, it's nonetheless, although the subject matter of the vote was permitted under the exception to the open meeting rules, my investigation determined that council voted to take a direct action rather than directing staff or legal counsel to carry out this action. At this point in the meeting, our legal counsel had actually left the Zoom meeting. So there was no point that we could have asked legal counsel to carry out any action. We had lost our legal representation had signed up the Zoom meeting. But again, we were allowed to vote. So these are all starting to contravene themselves. The last page or the last paragraph, which I'm very happy with, it says these councillors told my office that gatherings or informal meetings of council did not take place. My investigation found no additional evidence that council members contravened the Act's open meeting provisions by holding informal gatherings. That is correct. We've been saying that all along, and we've had numerous letters and we've had some slanderous Facebook thing that we had informal meetings, but we never had, and I'm glad that that part was correct. So in light of the recent by-election, I encourage all newly elected members of council to familiarize themselves with the open meeting rules and be mindful of the requirements in the Act in order to promote openness and transparency. We obviously have, we've taken a lot of training as a new council. And actually we had Amberly Gavel in here a month ago to give us some training, something that many councils have not done in recent years. So I just want to give light and closure to the rumors that once people read this, they're gonna, you're all gonna base your own opinion, but I had my opportunity to tell the public, the residents, and the rest of you council members that weren't part of the February 20th meeting, what I can't go into all full details, but I can tell you that what parts of this letter are not correct. And I feel that the 3 or 4 of us that held our ground for this February 20th meeting and all the stuff that went on it, we have to be able to walk around and hold our head high. And I think if a report comes out and it's incorrect, that I don't see any problem in one of us saying where it was right and where it was wrong. So those are my comments on that meeting or that letter. Any other questions, comments? No? Okay, that was my rant for tonight. 11B is now switched, which would be the verbal. Oh yeah. So I'll read the resolution again. Be it resolved, the council acknowledge the receipt of the Ontario Ombudsman report dated November 8th, 2024, and has included it in tonight's open meeting agenda per their request. All in favor? Carried. I was so excited there. So we're going to bring us to 11B, which is verbal report Councillor Kempsel regarding mix.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On October 23rd, I had my first meeting with Mix, and this was shortly after our council decided to turn down being part of Boreal Pulse. And that night, Mix did the same thing. They denied following through and being part of Boreal Pulse. I spoke with Oswald. He's the Mix board member here out of Matheson. And he told me to bring forth to our council that we should get a hold of the Mix board and maybe hold a meeting with them to talk about using each other's blanked on that word. resources and whatnot to source out another doctor. Now, if we can combine our resource and the mix and find ourselves a doctor that way for Matheson, that would probably benefit our community a lot better.
Okay. Which is gonna tie into my next.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments regarding Councillor Campbell's report? Okay, can I just continue on mine before we? Okay. So 11C, which is my couple of questions is falls right upon what Councillor Campbell said is we had removed ourselves from the Boreal Pulse, thank you. Which puts us in a position where we have no direction as to how we can, as Black River Mason, entertain any type of promoting for a doctor. So having said that, and as you had mentioned, maybe bringing in mix, I think we need to come up with some committee, I guess, or ad hoc committee, maybe an ad hoc committee, but where do we go from here? We've had some residents tell us there's, to put some money into a pot, and when we have an interested doctor, we'll have that money to give to the doctor, but we're gonna take a step back and have to get the doctor to even come here. So I know in a couple of years, we're gonna have hotels and developments and gas stations and corner stores all along the highway, but that's still, the doctor still hasn't come here. Once he gets here, he'll be excited because we're gonna have all these shops, but we need to take that first step. So I don't think that's something that we want to burden our staff with just yet. But if we can have a couple of members of council and a couple of members of the public and mix, obviously, put our heads together, come up with a plan. How do we get that doctor here? So if that's something that we could, as a council, come up, I don't create a report again, I don't, but, or just, it would be creating a report to, writing a report to create an ad hoc committee. Any questions or comments? Can't be that simple. Okay,
We could bring back an amendment to the bylaw that forms those committees. It'd be that simple.
okay, perfect. Following that committee, I've had quite a few emails from individuals that live here and some that just have moved here. And in light of our job posting for a town manager, a couple of people reached out to me to offer their services for beautification of our town and economic development. So they're sort of taking the pseudo role of a town manager where they want to attract this business, or we should reach out to these people to get their funds. It might be worth our while to consider something of that committee style, so that when our town manager comes in, he or she's gonna have, I don't know, 60 or 80 hours of work for the first 2 years to try and get caught up and trying to bring us back into compliance or anything. But if we already had a plan in place to say, this is where we see opportunities. As well, a lot of government funding and big businesses would rather donate money to an ad hoc committee than they're gonna donate to a town. You take a place like Canadian Tire. Canadian Tire is not gonna give you money for sports, but you have a committee to give money to a committee, but they're not gonna come running and break pound mass in a check. So that sometimes gives us advantage, but what it also does is it allows the residents to be part of this. Because we can sit here, we can come up with 100 different ideas of what we think is good, but it's when we hit the streets, or you go to the coffee shop, or you go to the auto repair shop, and you hear these ideas that, I never thought of that. Now, I know right now we're not full on committees, but I think economic development or beautification, there's got to be some sort of name, but I think that would be more exciting than some of our other committees we have sitting there. I don't know if we can get a report written on something like as to the viability of it. I don't know, I'm open for questions or comments. Now, so they're gathered.
Um. I'm all in favor of maybe creating a committee. But maybe we should be putting some of these committee, like. The list you gave tonight, where we need. As well as this committee, have it right on the township website. So that people can look and say, oh, I'm interested in this or that.
Mhm.
It might be,
The committees of council I know was, that should be on the township website still. But it gets buried or,
mhm.
so it's. Bring this out to everybody is up to our responsibility to. Every time we're out there to talk of it, you know, we can post this at all our community centers, we can post it at the arena, we can post it everywhere, but it's up to us to. Keep talking about it.
But if there's an interest in being part of a committee for beautification or whatever it may be, I mean. I don't want to discourage people from volunteering and wanting to help in any way. I think that's just.
Yeah.
One way to be like, connect with our citizens and,
Yeah, and it's. The way I see it is it's giving them a voice.
yes,
If we just constantly make the decisions and then. We make a decision and you find a week later, someone said, why didn't you do that? Or I wish I was part of it, so. Again, with this. If this might be successful, no one might sign up. But at least we tried. And like I said, I have two individuals that have sent me. 4 or 5 page long documents as to what they see can be done. So. I know it's part of our role to do that, but if you have a committee that's doing the meeting once every 2 weeks.
there's no harm in trying it.
Yep. Any other questions, comments? You had your hand up, Mr. O'Connor?
Yeah, I was just gonna suggest maybe that, it would be worth exploring the idea of encouraging somebody to create a charitable organization. Because you mentioned that, maybe you go out looking for donations for certain types of expenditures.
Mhm.
That charitable organization can contribute.
Yeah.
Whereas we can fundraise.
Right. Which, you know, like falls onto our, ad hoc recreation committee. So if we want to get some more brand new boards put up, we want to get, the outdoor rinks built. If you have a committee that, a big crown or a big corporation is gonna donate money, they're gonna donate it to that committee. They're not donating it to us. So we're losing out on that opportunity. So right now, we could easily have those, Volgonia and the Raymore rinks open, but,
Mhm.
okay, so is that do I have to get a resolution for that? Bring. Oh, another comment? Council.
Thank you, Mayor. I know a lot of our committees, we haven't been meeting at all. Is that because we're still short on committee members?
Well, one, because of our. Recent by-election, we're behind on that, but two, yes, we're behind, we are not meeting our terms of reference. Councilor Allen.
For the committees that we don't have enough people for, is it possible to like advertise them on our pages, whatever pages we have, but advertise them separately so that hey, are you interested in helping out the kids in the recreation? Like give a small detailed background, make it so it's more attractive, because I know just you holding up that sheet, that looks awfully boring to look at and doesn't attract people to look at it and read through everything. Whereas if you put, okay, we're looking for 2 members for this committee and give a description and like on a daily basis, put a new one out kind of thing so that you know, it attracts more attention and maybe gets more eyes on it.
You sound like you want to take this on.
I don't know if this hat rack has enough room.
Definitely, we can look at, yeah, dividing it up. Being color pages, but also. Just talk about as much as possible. Because the committees are only gonna help us. Now, the Community Adjustment and Planning Advisory Committee, they're a necessity. We absolutely need them to move forward. A lot of people think that committees are, you know, 2 meetings a week and 6 a month, something like that. They're not, they're, a lot of them are once a month, once every 2 months. It's not a huge commitment, but you get a lot of enjoyment out of them. Economic development. The resolution would be that council direct staff to bring back a report and draft bylaw amendment respecting forming a committee relating to physician recruitment and economic development. I got to move in a second, please. Regarding Councilor Charbonneau. All in favor? (11) Be it resolved, the council approves the emergency spending request by Ontario Clean Water Agency for repairs to piping of well number 1 and well number 2. That was moved by Councilor Gadry and seconded by Councilor Allen. Questions or comments on those expenditures? Councilor Charbonneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A simple but hard question, I guess. Why are we only seeing this now?
I'm going to ask Mr. Lefebvre. Mr. Walsh isn't here, so that falls upon you.
That is a very good question. Easy but hard. I'd have to look at the timeline. I'd have to see when it was initially brought forward by Aqua, and then the report that we created and brought forward. I know that there was some questions relating to procurement, but I don't think there was really any delay. So it's okay. I can bring that answer back to you at the next meeting.
Councilor Charbonneau.
I'd just like to, the date that the expenditure request was sent in was September 17th. And we are now almost in December. My second question would be, these quotes by these contractors are probably expired now. So we might be approving something that's irrelevant.
Mr.
So,
Lefebvre.
through you, Mr. Mayor, again, we had a meeting not too long ago with Aqua, and this was a topic of discussion, so it can be done. The quotes are still.
That's December 23.
Yeah, I see where Councilor Charbonneau is referring. There's some of it is dated from last year.
Yeah. Almost a year ago.
Yeah. Yeah, so if we do approve it, and it's a necessity, we need this well, obviously, it's.
Yeah.
We should not be in a position where we're without a well or a backup well. But I noticed in the one report, it had said that it'd come up in August, so we weren't even in office. Councilor Charbonneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I don't want to start anything, but water is a very serious issue, probably the most serious issue we have in our town, right?
Mhm.
It can go very badly, very quickly, and since the day we got sworn in, I was told about this, and it never came to our attention. So that's something that needs to be addressed, like
Mhm.
water should be priority.
I can't tell you why we weren't made aware of it. Now that we are, we need to, we're gonna learn from this that if we get a report on water or any type of report, they can't have it sitting, especially the second quote being over a year old. 11 months. 11 and a half months ago, that quote was sent in. So that was with previous staff and that was with previous council. So. The gist of it all is, oh, Councillor Charbonneau.
The 2023, you're looking at, that's the job that was done.
Okay.
So last year, the job was done on well 3 and 4. Well 3 broke, but it was done on well 3 and 4 because 4 was right there. And now well 1 broke and we're looking at doing well 1 and 2 this time.
Yeah, and that section is got well for it. So. Our request is only for the spending on 70,958. Which is, yeah, 3 months old. Your concern is if we approve it, that it's not gonna be 70,958.
Well, I'm concerned it's gonna be overrun big time because we're gonna have frost, we're gonna have people working in cold and snow and taking breaks, and it's gonna end up costing 85,000-90,000.
And this is above and beyond our aqua agreement. Okay. So. Did you want to go back for a requote or did you want to? Counselor, or sorry, Ms. Larson?
When Mr. Lefebvre and I met with them, they still seem to think that this was we have to act on it though, because the longer we wait, then we're gonna run into more.
I agree, I just, like I mentioned, I'd like to make sure this doesn't happen again. That estimates don't sit there for 3 months, especially on water.
Yeah.
If it's an estimate to fix a tire on something we use once a year, not too bad. On the main well that does the whole town of Matheson.
So that's, yeah, that's something we're gonna have to learn. As staff and council, we gotta get better at, absolutely. Second part, if we approve this tonight, we're approving 70,958.36. So if they go to start the job and it comes in at $90,000, well, we approved 70,958, so if they don't like it, they'll have to come back right away with a price. Does that make sense? Because otherwise, what's the sense in approving by value if they're gonna do whatever? We're not, it's not a PO to fix it, it's a PO for 70,958.36. Councillor Charbonneau?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. During this job, if there's change orders, who approves the change orders?
That would go through Doug Walsh.
So we approve 70,000
Mhm.
and then somebody else approves the rest.
We can, what's given the time major, right? So if it's in between December 9th and our first council meeting in January. But we could make it a point that we are informed of it. Mr. Lefebvre?
Yeah, based on this discussion, I don't think anybody would approve a change order without bringing it back to council.
Not after tonight. Councilor McCutcheon?
Yeah, like if this is the quote that they're putting out and we're approving $70,000, but it runs 90. Like, contract says 70. Why are we paying up? Right? Well, like, why this sat on a shelf somewhere from since September is ridiculous. Right? And now here we are, it's frost is hitting the ground and we're being rushed again to make a decision on this stuff. I mean, it's, this isn't how you do business and be fiscally responsible when we're gonna pump out 70,000, but they might come back with 100. Right? On overruns. And who did the quotes? Was that Aqua finding these contractors or did we do it? Aqua.
Through us. Yeah.
So this is all Aqua's gig. And they sell us at 70,000, right? Oh, well, they can't do it for 70,000 $958.36. Looks like Aqua's gonna lose some money.
It's important that we have the well, and you can use the word blame again, but we should have been made aware of it, but Aqua as well should have been pounding on our door saying, this is a month old, it's important, so we're gonna learn from this. We all will. Counselor Gatter,
Yeah, at this point, I don't think we have much choice, like, this has to be done, it's water, like, we can't mess around with water.
Mhm.
We'll just deal with it. After, I guess.
we're good. My only Counselor Charbonneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councilor Gadri. But I am trying to prove a point that this cannot happen all the time.
Mhm.
Right? That's what I'm trying to prove.
Yep.
Because now, when Aqua calls Cyro Construction, and Cyro says, I gave you that quote 3 months ago, I'm busy now. What's gonna happen?
Mhm. Yeah.
You know, you're in the business, like,
Mhm.
we have to get this done, but
When the snow hits the ground, your price goes up. We know that. And again, the escape clause in here, which I always. I don't like with the contingency of 8%. So you know that's gonna be eaten up. If we had done this in September, or in August, when we got their quote. We might have been okay, but you know for sure that will be gone in heat in the first week, so. So having said that, do any more discussion on? So we have a mover second on that already? Yep.
Yeah.
So, Counselor Bouchard.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just reading some of the information they got down here that, it says here that they had glued type PVC pipe in the floor, but PVC pipe is not really made for water. For potable water, so, and there's a lot of thermal expansion, so maybe they need to look at. And it says here that it's been a reoccurring problem, so maybe they should look at different piping.
no, it's, I can explain.
Counselor.
When well 3 blew up. They broke the floor to go look at the issue and they found that PVC piping. So well 4 is right beside it, they fixed 3 and 4. Right? Now well 1 blew up and they're looking at doing the same job, so we will have no more PVC.
Okay.
All right. All in favor of the expense for Aqua? Carried, thank you. Item 12, as I said, we deferred until we get some further information. This two. Oh, this to unfinished business, a verbal report, treasurer. Clarification on questions from previous regular council meeting. Larson.
Through the mayor, council. I just want to say I went through some of the journal accounts that Councilor Charbonneau had asked. Yeah, I know, there were some coding errors. I did find some expenses have to be transferred to the proper accounts. The figures I'm going to provide, I've kind of rounded up to the nearest dollar, just. So one of the questions was on the election expense, and that was up at around 124,387. In there, we had staff wages of 25,503. Set up and technical support, 26,787. Security, 46,520. I put this under general expenses because it was ads, voters lists, the candidates lists. That was at 20,320. Election staff wages was almost 4,600. Computers, 7,800. Meals for election officers, almost 400. Supplies, and I'm being literal, supplies, $688. That brings the election expenses up that way. Administration contracts. That total was 608,552. In there, we have the highway corridor project at 130,203. And if you're gonna ask me what they all these projects are, I'm very not familiar with them yet. There's a tourism project for 17,172. The Poplar Park Playground at 60,400. And that's not installed yet. The arena project, 202,304. Security, 30,402. Occupational health and safety investigation, 80,462. Safety training and management system, 7,700. The deputy treasurer, 9,273. Bargaining and legal expenses, about 915 in that one. Labor interruptions. That figure was at 1,347,264. The big chunk of that was public works, rec, landfill, mechanic. That was allotted 1,205,712. There were legal interruption or legal expenses in there as well for 39,640. There were staff wages at 13,250. Admin training on some of the computer software as well, because they had to know how to keep the books running. 9,916, and advertising was about 4,100. I still have quite a few more general ledger accounts to go through. This also is quite beneficial for budgeting process to know where things were. And I know going through them, I can't say why they coded things to certain accounts. That's where they are. Like I say, some of the ones I've gone through, I've put into an account where I think it is best suited to be. I also wanted you to let you know that I've made arrangements to have the auditors to come in-house the first week of December. So if they're in-house, they'll be hands-on. They can work with the staff. And then from there, hopefully, we can get the audit. Our goal is to get the audit completed as soon as we can. There's very, very little that they have been given. That's about it. Any other?
Counselor Charbonneau.
Do you hear that? It's evil, eh?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an easy question. How's Craig Davidson doing on the, I forget what it's called.
Bank
but,
statements.
Yeah, reconciliation.
Even there. Actually, that is written in here. When I spoke with him, he originally said he would be in to help out the first week of December. And now he's saying he probably can't come in till maybe the second week of January. So I have spoken with the mayor to see if there was something else maybe we could do. And we have contacted former treasurer to see if maybe we could get help, just say with the budget. And then I can concentrate to get structure and organization and everything else moving. If it means that I have to go back and start January on a bank statement, get it going, and then train the proper staff who's supposed to be doing to get them going. So be it.
Any answers on the former?
Few discussions that she wants to just go over some conditions and then. And it would be good if she, we could have one person just concentrate on budget. You want the budget done on a timely manner.
And being a former employee knows our processes, our policies, our numbers very familiar, so there's less of a learning curve to come in and get that budget, because that budget is important. And you're all aware.
And there's so much backlog.
Yeah. Yeah, and with Mr. Davidson, if he can't be in here until January, that's beyond, we can't do it. It's way too long. Counselor Charbonneau?
Just like, cause I know who you've been talking to, just to clarify, so people know. It's back when the budget was good. Just,
Way to
That's
te-
very well.
yeah,
Way to tease, thanks. Any other questions or comments for Treasury? Okay, move on to application for township bursaries. Moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor McCutcheon, be it resolved that council awards the bursaries as follows. A $2,500 bursary to A Cuddy. $1,500 bursary to N DeRoche, and $1,000 bursary to H
Sigh.
Psy. Thank you. All in favor? Carried. This moves us under 15, our question and answer period. It's actually the answer and question period. So on November 12th, Steve Wilson, Ward 2. What is our procedure for job postings, the length of time advertised and where? Steve, we don't have a actual policy as to how we do our job postings, but thanks to you, we're now going to start creating one.
Spread a little wider net, I hope.
Eh?
Spread a little wider net than where you reach out for people
Yeah,
to
so-
be interested.
Yeah, so I'll finish.
And, oh, sorry.
No, so it's going to include suggestion as the policy, we have suggestions to the length and the location of the advertisement, so. That will be coming forward, and as for the 1 day notice, you had mentioned there was a job on there for 1 day. That was actually a reminder. That there was 1 day left for that actual position. That's what I,
Bill was not seen anywhere other than Facebook.
yeah, but it was just a reminder.
I'm
can't-
saying even the original one was nowhere other than
Yeah.
Facebook.
I found some.
It's a little narrow.
Hmm?
A little bit of a narrow path.
Yeah, but it was out there for a fair bit of
Facebook
time.
People are the only ones that can see your job postings, you kind of.
Katie Brown, Ward 2, showing an update on the agenda or update on the ice, and she had some praise for Lisa. So it's always nice to hear praise and thank, Lisa and Mr. Lefebvre. And if anyone looked on the way up, but ice is light tonight. So. Yes, Mr.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd also like to thank the recreation staff. They have been working long hours this week.
Yep. Yep.
They are doing everything they can to get the ice in for our promised rentals.
We're gonna be skating soon. And shout out goes out to Iroquois Falls for they lent us. Is that what the word? Yeah, they lent us their ice painting machine, as ours has some issues, so. Two communities coming together, bunch of staff, so great. Pauline Francis, Ward 3, she asked about a water and sewer delegation update, and we agreed to have Miss Francis back to present it to us. So that we're fresh for that. Larry Phibbs, Ward 1, had a comment on the wording on a recent request for quotation for age of equipment, and we agreed that night that We're gonna very precisely look at our wording of RFQs going out so that we don't have any more confusion. Charlie Cook, Ward 3. Timelines for winter snow removal and emergency and use of emergency phone. So we follow the minimum maintenance standard for municipal highways. We're class 5, which is 10 centimeters in 24 hours. And we're gonna post that on our website for people to review. It's not something we can discuss. It is the minimum standard. The emergency phone is 705-232-0519, and it is to be with an employee at all times. There have been report issues of it not being answered, and those are going to be looked into because it's critical that that phone be answered at all times. So thank you, Charlie, for bringing that up. Garth Francis, Ward 3, talked to the road sign appearances. We do have many vehicle driving around, so we're looking into what we can do to monitor signs, stuff like that. That could fall under property standards because it's a standard that we need to take pride in everything we do as well, not just our residents, but us as a town. Jerry Del Pie, Ward 6, had comments about the proposed quarry on Butler Lake. And Jerry provided us with information, and he's actually offered assistance to council moving forward, and he met with Councillor Bouchard, and he's keeping him up to date. So as things progress with that, I'm sure we'll hear from Councillor Bouchard. And then we had a question regarding Mennonite's building a church, a newly proposed church, and Councillor Charbonneau was kind enough to meet with them afterwards and help them with some of their issues. And I think that's well underway. I think the church is already up. It's pretty good, it's pretty close. So that's our answers. I'll now open the floor up for some questions from the floor. And if you do want to ask a question, if you could please state your name and the ward that you're from so we know who to direct the question. Steve Wilson, Ward 2.
Yes. First is more of a comment than a question. It's basically when you folks, all got elected, I'd mentioned to you that I was gonna make you a list of things I had on my brain. Congratulations, you've touched on them all already. Good job there.
Thank you.
My question is about the road you were talking about, Pine Road, I believe you said. And making it a surplus road. Right, so the Mennonites can do what they wanted there to get around the bridge. Once you make a road surplus, does it not go back to the easement owners? You know how all roads are created on an easement torn from someone else's taken from someone else's property. Once you deem that road surplus, does that ownership of that property not go back to those homeowners, landowners? I think it does, I could be wrong.
Okay.
So my question on that is, when a township does determine a road is surplus property, is it property they can sell to the guy that already owns it? Or does it go back to the ownership of the original property that it was taken from?
Okay, good question. That is going to be part of our report. So stay tuned for that answer.
Oh, okay.
All right. Thank you, Steve.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Oh, yes, sir.
On this evening's agenda, maybe I missed it, but what happened to 11B and 12A?
11B. Oh, sorry. Yeah, we changed that in our confirmation agenda. So under municipal office, it should have been me speaking, which it was. It should have been me speaking or asking for the ad hoc committees for the doctors and the economic development. And we switched B and C because Councillor Campbell wanted to speak about mix first, which would have led into my conversation. Where's the other one? Sorry.
Well, 12A was kind of, I assume, is tied together. I'm not sure.
Well, they was deferred, right?
12, but yeah, no, again, that we did in the confirmation of agenda.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was before you went into closed, I think.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah,
Sorry.
we removed that because we're need clarification from some documents.
Okay,
So we didn't want to speak on to false information yet.
so there'll be a follow-up in the future about what's going on?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And one further thing, glad to see you finally got the new microphones in place.
However, the batteries went dead.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
The batteries
Batteries
went
went
dead.
Oh. Well, I wondered why it was getting quieter.
No, thank you very much, but yeah, we'll, that'll be our next issue is keeping charged batteries.
Can we just clarify that the batteries came with the microphones? We didn't purchase them and we can plug them in.
Okay.
These are ever ready.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's an improvement. It's something that we said we do and it's gonna work going forward. I'm sure it'll work. And I'm hoping we hear good news from from our owl. Because I watched a couple of our council meetings on YouTube this week. And you might as well watch a Charlie Brown comic show. You
Yeah.
can't hear anything.
Yep.
So this is apparently gonna be tied in, or it is tied in.
Not tonight.
Oh, so it's not tied in, so it will, but even the clarity should be better. So
Perfect.
moving forward, we should see an improvement. Thank you very much, though. Charlie, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, Charlie Cook, Ward Three. Did you guys get a full complement of workers to? I wanted to go back on this minimum standard things, or if you have a full complement of workers, are you guys gonna ensure that they're is followed through, that the roads are opened up in 24 hours? It's a double question, but
Yeah.
you didn't really answer my question properly, what I wanted to know. Do you have the people in place to open the roads within the minimum maintenance standards?
Well, it's what we're aiming for. We don't want to, I don't want to answer every question tonight because I can't make a decision for public works or training or where we're at. But if we have a standard of whatever the level 5 we're at, then we have to maintain it. We have to get to it. So we're gonna do our best, but as vague an answer that is for tonight, that's
Well,
what we'll
that's
give
why I
you.
was asking, because my question I asked 2 weeks ago. When there's a time limit, are you gonna hire more contractors? Or do it all in-house and work overtime? Or are you gonna hire more than one contractor and move on to the next one and?
Yeah, so we had a couple more people hired just recently, and then we have that call out list, so. We have to do what we have to do to get to that level. All right. Okay. Any other question, comments? Oh, yes, sir.
Can I just comment on the Pine Road Bridge a bit?
Yep.
Rather than try and sell the road, which is used, I think, also for fire. Why can't you just pull that bridge and put it in a culvert? And retain the road as a municipal asset? That's not a very big creek. I don't know how many have seen it, but that's not a very big water course. And I'm just wondering, why couldn't they just pull the bridge, put in a proper culvert, call it a day?
Hopefully that comes back in the report.
Yeah.
We did have another bridge that we discussed doing a similar item to it.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a possibility. But hopefully that will come out now it will come out in the report as that as an option.
Yeah, the only reason I raised it, because I didn't hear it earlier as a suggestion. So I just wanted to get it included as a suggestion.
Yep, okay, no, very good.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Perfect. I have my sheet. Brings us to adjournment. Moved by Councillor Bouchard. Seconded by Councillor Charbonneau. Be it resolved that this regular council meeting is hereby adjourned at 8:53 PM. All in favor? Carried. Then moved by second.